Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared. My lovely wife Kara is not with us today, and today we are going to show step by step how to sharpen freehand. If you follow these steps, you will get a sharp edge. Now, do not compare yourself to anybody but yourself. Your only competition is yourself. Remember that. Your only competition is yourself. Now, first off, stones. It doesn't matter what stone you have, whatever stone you have, as long as it is a low grit. Start off with a 300 grit or below. 400 grit will work just fine, but you want to get it basically under 400 grit. Now, if you were going to ask me what stone do I recommend the most to beginners, it is a diamond plate. This is my most recommended to beginners. This is the ones that I recommend. They are very cheap. You can get a 300, 600, and a 1200 grit for around $50 in my links down in the description. This one's a 2x6 plate right here. Same thing right here. And now for $100, you can get the big daddies, the big plates. So you can get 3 big plates for around $100. These last a pretty good long time. They're good quality. They're nice and flat. The reason why I recommend them to most of beginners is because they're easy to maintain. You don't have to use water, unless if you want to. You can use water, but you can also use them dry. They're nice and flat, and they cut any steel. Now, there are going to be certain steels that do better on aluminum oxide, and you can still sharpen on any stone. It's not that big of a deal as long as you start off with a low grit, but these are my most recommended. Now, let's get into it. How do you find your angle? This is very simple. First off, as long as your edge is at an angle, that angle is just fine. But we're also going to show how to just find the angle you're going to want. Now, the best way I can say is lay your knife flat on the stone. You're going to see a shadow. See the shadow under the blade or under the knife? See that shadow? And pay attention closer to here, not over here. Pay attention to basically right here. So you see the shadow underneath? See the shadow? It's still there. It's still there right now. You still see the shadow. You still see it. And it's gone. So right there is a good angle. Now I can go up higher than that if I want. Now another way is you can also just look at the edge reflecting at you. So like right now it's reflecting until it's not reflecting no more. Right there's a good angle too. You can also do it just like that. Reflecting at us. See it shining at us? Not shining at us. That's also another good way you can do it if you have an overhead light facing down, on top of you basically. Now let's show another knife. Now this knife has thumb studs that get in the way. As you can see, the thumb studs are in the way. I can't get the whole knife on there, so I'm going to have to turn it at an angle. But the same rules apply. Right now, this one's really flat. The whole knife is flat, so you don't see much of a shadow when I lay it on there. Just make sure the edge is on there. Remember, we're paying attention mostly to the heel. As long as you're not laying flat and your edge is up, that is a fine angle. The higher you go, the higher the angle is going to be. But it's not that big of a deal. Remember, this is a good angle, this is a good angle, this is a good angle. The only difference is going to be is how shallow your edge is, basically, from 25 degrees to 15 degrees. It's not that big of a deal as long as you match the other side. And if you want, you can start off high by holding it up kind of high and then see if you like it. And if you don't like it, you can always go back farther and lean the edge back a little bit. The higher you hold your angle, if this is high, then this is low. So the higher you hold your angle, the closer to the edge you're going to sharpen. Say if this is your knife, this is the spine, then this is the edge you're sharpening. The higher you hold your angle, the closer to the edge you're going to sharpen. Now the lower you hold your angle, remember this was high, The lower you hold your angle, the farther back on the edge you're going to sharpen. So if you see yourself only getting just the tip of the edge, then you know you need to lay it back a little bit so you can get back here. You want to get the whole thing like this. Let's look at one more knife. Same thing, you see the shadow under it. You can see the shadow under the knife. I'm lifting, I'm lifting, I'm lifting, I'm lifting. Shadow's gone. That would be a good angle. Now I could go up a little higher than that if I want to make a higher angle. That's up to me. You know, my choice if I want that high of an angle. Now once you have found your angle, now there's a couple ways we can do this, but I'm going to try to keep it really simple. The way I learned, or the best way I learned, was find a spot up towards the front of the blade. So say if I pick this little spot right there, I'm going to keep putting my finger there every time. So after I found my angle, I have my angle. Now I'm pushing the back of the knife to my finger. Say if that's my angle, I'm pushing right there. It's going to leave just a little tiny mark right there, and I'm going to mark that spot. Now I'm going to match that to my thumb. And then you'll see the line on my thumb. Now I'm going to trace it. There's my angle on both sides of the knife. Basically find a spot on the blade that will be comfortable for you to push the blade across the stone. My spot will be right there. I will put a dot on both sides right there. It will come off with rubbing alcohol. Then match up that spot to your finger. So put your finger on the stone, match up the line to the spot on the knife, put the edge to the stone, spine of the blade to the finger, edge to the stone, and then that is your angle to maintain as you're sharpening. And you can go back and forth. You can lift off the stone and put it back. You can go sideways. If you lift up to get the belly, just lift straight up with your elbow to get the belly and the tip. After you get good, you can just keep on repeating the same angle without using the line trick. Or you can get little guides. They have little angle guides you can set right there. There's lots of ways to get your angle. There's another way where you can fold up a piece of paper and find it. But this is my favorite way to teach. So now we got the angle. Now I match it right up to that same spot. I'm using this spot on the knife right at the end of this flat right there, a little peak. Drag it across the stone like I'm shaving off a layer of diamonds, because this is a diamond plate. And now when I lift up, I can set it right back down. I'm still at the same angle because my finger's touching the stone. So right now, if you look at this side, my finger is actually touching the stone. And so I'm using it as a guide as I go across the stone. And then when I get to the belly of the knife, I just lift my elbow. So as I do it again, as I'm coming across the stone, I'm going to start getting to the belly right here, and I got to get this. Remember, your elbow is going to be very important when sharpening. After you find your angle, when you're coming across the stone, and you get to the belly, just lift lift your elbow so you can lock your wrist, lay the blade on the stone, find your angle, and as you're coming across it, when you start getting to the end of the stone and towards the belly, just lift your elbow. After you get really good, then you can start moving your wrist, but at first, just lock your wrist so that you go do so that your angle is nice and perfect when you're coming across. See how I'm moving perfectly straight? And then when I want to get the belly of the knife or towards the tip, I just lift my elbow. You see, as I come across the stone, I'm not hitting that tip. So what I want to do is lift my elbow. As I lift my elbow, you see how it does that? So as I come across the stone, I lift my elbow until the tip hits. Now when my finger is there guiding it, I can feel that I'm repeating the same thing. I just let my finger just graze the stone. I'm not putting any pressure on the stone with my finger. And then I can go back and forth if I want. Now you keep on repeating that until your entire new grip pattern covers from heel to tip. And you have a burr on the other side. What is a burr? A burr is when the steel, say if I'm sharpening this side, I will feel the burr on this side. The burr will start going over the edge. If this is the edge we are sharpening on this side, as we're sharpening, steel will start folding over the other side. So that's this edge we're sharpening right now. Steel is going to fold over to this side and we will feel it with our fingers. Just touch, just rub it like that and you will feel it. You want it all the way across. Now look at the old grip pattern. Here is the factory edge. You can see how it looks. Now look at what the new edge on the other side looks like. So you want it to look similar to this all the way across. It doesn't have to look beautiful on the first stone, but you want it to look as good as possible, because the better you do on this stone, the better the other stones will go and the faster they will go. Now after you have a burr all the way up and down, repeat the same thing on the other side. Now you're going to use your thumb. Same way with the pointer finger or whichever finger you're using. Matching up to the same spot on the knife. Remember, don't push hard with your finger on the stone. You just want it to barely rub the stone. If you're having problems at the heel or the tip, just focus on that area without going up and down. Just kind of add a little bit more time into that area. And make sure you don't push down like that to make it rock. And then with the tip, just make sure you're lifting to get the tip. And make sure you push the edge of the knife towards the tip right there. See how I'm pushing it with my thumb? Remember, this is a lot like riding a bike. The more you do it and the more effort you put into it, the better you will be. You're not just gonna jump on a bike with never have been on a bike and, you know, and then you're jumping jumps and popping wheelies. You have to spend time on the stone to feel what it feels like. It's just the way it goes. The more effort you put into it and the more time, the better you will be. Now, once your grip pattern is all the way done from heel to toe, and it looks really good, and you have a burr all the way up and down, switch stones. Now go to your medium grit, which in my case is going to be a 600 grit. Now repeat the exact same thing all over again. Try not to slide off the plate or hit the knife into the stone. Remember, your most important stones are going to be your low grit, especially when you first start as a beginner. I was so fascinated, or I wanted the high grit stone so bad when I first started, and that was one of my biggest mistakes. And I quickly found out that the high grits were important. It was the low grits, the 200s, 300, 400, 500, and 600 grit stones. I could stop on this stone and have a perfectly fine edge. And remember, following your grip pattern is the most important part. Following the grit that you are putting on the edge. Pay attention to that, because then you can watch the grit from this stone create the marks on the edge that make it sharp. And then you can watch it and you'll know when you're going to have a burr, or you'll know when that side of the edge is completely done. And once you've gotten a burr on both sides, you've sharpened this side and got the burr on this side and sharpened this side, and then the burr went back over to this side. So now you feel it on one side. Now, and you know your grip pattern completely covers your entire edge. And it looks really good. It's just some marks. Then you can switch to your last stone, or whatever stone is going to be your next stone. And then you can keep repeating stones after this, going on and on. You don't have to, and you could have stopped at the 600 grit. Or you could have stopped at the 600 grit. Completely up to you. Make sure you wipe off your stone from time to time. And if you're using an aluminum oxide, make sure you're using oil or soap and water, whichever you use. Make sure you keep it nice and clean. Now, once you've gotten a burr on both sides, after you finish, once you got the burr up from one side and you've now on your last stone, once you have a burr and you've gotten a burr on both sides and your grip pattern looks good, nice and even from heel to toe, now we're going to go to the opposite side where the burr is. And we're going to do a burr removal. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Go over to the other side. 1, 2, 3. Back to the other side. 1, 2. Back to the other side. 1, 2. And you can feel where the burr is, and whichever side the burr is on, go back to that one. Do another pass or two till you feel it fold over to the other side. Now we're going to do 1 and 1 passes. 1 and 1. 1 pass. 1 pass. We're just doing a burr removal. Then, after about 10 or so passes, get your strop. And you want to basically start at the tip, go downward, like that, downward, and then back up. You want to go the opposite way. Remember, we were sharpening this way, now we are going opposite. You can just start at the tip and work your way up. Start at the tip where it's raised up and then drop down and go across the leather. Basically the opposite way of sharpening. Or you can start the tip, pull down, and basically do the J. Don't strop too much, just enough to get rid of all those, basically all the steel left from the burr. And now in this case we finished on a 1200 grit stone, but like I said, we could have finished on any stone. We could have finished on a 600, and then we could go higher than this if we wanted to and put a mirror on this. Don't mind the dust. Come on. Look at the other side. Nice and flat, nice and even. Sorry for the shaking.